sitting in my front yard. I don't know if you'll be able to hear the traffic behind me. The highway is all the way down the end of the driveway. And it's a beautiful day outside today. It's not too hot, the weather's great. And I wanted to make this video to talk about differences that I have learned between working in a public childcare centre versus working in family daycare. I did work in a public large childcare centre for 15 months, and I left to start my own family daycare business, which I have been operating for about 2 months now, a little over 2 months. And I have noticed some changes in myself and my work, the way that I'm able to carry out this role as an early childhood educator since leaving the centre I worked in to having a small group of children every day. So the first thing I'm going to share, the first difference is, while the daycare centre I worked at was very public, family daycare is very private. So there is a big difference between working in a public atmosphere where there are lots of staff and lots of other educators and lots of children and families, to having just a small group of children and families that you interact with every day. So being in family daycare, I only have 4 children every day, and I'm only interacting with 4 families each day, and there's no other staff around, and sometimes this can feel a bit isolating to some people. I could understand. And for me, I actually really enjoy having that space to be with my own thoughts and experiences, rather than having to take in all of the energy from other people. Also, only having 4 children per day instead of 22 children per day, which is what I had previously, it does give it a very private feel, more of a family feeling and atmosphere. There's not as much noise, and it's more intimate that way. The second difference I want to share is the energy of the families. So this is not, I'm not sharing this in any way to judge parents or families, but for myself, I do notice a difference in families that are drawn to family daycare as opposed to families that are drawn to public long daycare. The families that I now work with, they aren't looking for long days for their children. They don't come to me to leave their children for 10 hours or more a day. They understand that their children need to go home after a certain amount of time, and they enjoy coming to collect their children and take them home. I'm not saying that families who put their children in public daycare don't look forward to seeing their children, because I saw the opposite. Working in a large centre, I saw many parents very happy to collect their children at the end of the day. And a lot of them were similar to the families I work with in family daycare. But I have noticed that it is more likely that families that want to go with family daycare rather than public daycare is that they are looking for that intimate environment for their children, and they don't necessarily align with long hours and crowded rooms that you would find in a large daycare centre. So family daycare provides that small intimate space that can draw in those parents that are looking for that kind of care for their child. And these parents that I've noticed that come to my service are very attentive and they really care deeply about the environment that their child is in. The third difference that I have noticed is the behaviors in children. So when I worked with 22 children in a large centre, and sometimes combining with other rooms, there would be over 30 children. There were a lot of negative, unwanted behaviours in these children. This is for many reasons, and I did write a blog post about unwanted behaviours in children, which I will link in the comments for those interested. But what I would like to share is that I do feel that the environment in a large daycare centre and so many children and so many educators and staff can really significantly impact the mood and energy of children. There's too much noise and sensory overload, and there's not enough space to be in their own rhythms and energy. With family daycare and only having 4 children a day, you can create this space for them, and I find there's not that same overwhelm. Yes, children still fight and they don't like to share and they still get cranky at one another. That's children for you. However, there is not as much need to compete for attention with educators, and there's enough attention to go around because there's only those 4 children per day. There's a lot of factors in family daycare that can make the behaviours of the children more settled and positive, like more freedom and less noise, less overwhelm, and less children. The next difference is less stress for educators. So I'm speaking of myself. I was extremely stressed out at my last job, working in a large centre, because there was so much to do. And there's just as much to do in family daycare. However, it's only for 4 children. It's not for 22 children. Therefore, it doesn't take as long and it's less stressful. There's more time for myself to relax and take a breath and be with my own thoughts and feelings, and to really have that presence that's needed for the children, to be there for them in a relaxed, non-stressful way. The next difference that I've noticed is it's easier to follow the rules in family daycare as opposed to public daycare. There's less children to record the daily care and events for. There's less cleaning to do, and there's not as much mess, and not having a smaller intimate space, there's really not as much packing away and cleaning to do, and it takes a lot less time. Another difference I've noticed is not having to wait for breaks to have something to eat, or having to communicate to go to the toilet for a break. It's very much like being at home and just going about your day as you normally would. It's not having to wait for everything to be scheduled by a certain time to be able to take care of yourself as an educator. I can take care of myself throughout the day whenever it's needed. I don't have to wait. The next one is it's a home environment. So children who attend daycare like to feel at home. It helps them to feel safe and relaxed and comfortable. And it's the same for myself. It really does feel like I'm in my own home. I can sit on the couch and cuddle the children if they need to. I can take a phone call if it's a good time. I can send an email to somebody if I need to. I can write receipts for parents or make a payment online. And it's like being at home in the sense that it's like being with my own children at home. I don't have to sit there looking at them every minute of the day. I can be doing some other things throughout the day and be looking over and checking on the children. And it's very relaxing when you feel like you can do your job and have the same feeling of being at home at the same time. The next difference is with family daycare, it's easier to follow the children's natural rhythms. So in a large public daycare centre, everything's scheduled, everything's timed, and everybody has to do everything at the same time, whether they want to or not. So all the nappy changes are done together, all the eating is done together, all the sleeping is done together. And yes, while I maintain some structure with these things throughout the day in family daycare, like everybody goes and lies down at the same time, it's more flexible in the sense that children can go to sleep at their own leisure. They're not being kept awake either by other loud children who don't sleep, because there's not as many children. And there's separate rooms, so the babies have their own room and they're not going to wake up the other children. And the children that don't want to sleep, they have a space out in the living room. So having the separate rooms allows the children's rhythms to be met and needs to be met, and having that quiet space that they can go to. And I noticed that in public childcare, I did encourage some children to bring a lunchbox, and I would allow them to eat that throughout the day when they wanted. But this was not recommended, and it was actually often frowned upon and told to me that it wasn't a good thing, that children needed to learn to eat with everybody else. They had to eat what was given to them as the meals that were cooked in the center before they could have the food they wanted. With family daycare, the children can just go to the fridge like at home and grab their lunch out when they're hungry. They don't have to eat when they're not hungry, and they don't have to wait to eat if they are hungry. And the children, some children want to draw and do arts and crafts while others want to play outside, and this is easier with family daycare because there's not as many children and limits to being able to do what their internal guidance is telling them they want to do. And the last difference I want to share is in family daycare, there is the freedom of not having people watching over you constantly and judging your practices and approaches to childcare. This was very overwhelming and stressful for me working in a daycare center, and I constantly felt judged and constantly felt like people were watching over my shoulder, and this made me feel like I was not trusted, and it really impacted the way that I interacted and engaged with the children. With family daycare, I can be myself more, and I can feel confident in trusting myself that I'm doing a good job. And it's also positive in the sense that I actually don't have people to prove myself to and to validate me. I'm forced to find that self-validation and trust myself and my own intuition, and that's really truly an amazing gift. So I hope you've liked this video, and if you are an educator that is struggling in the public childcare system and have considered family daycare, I highly recommend looking into it for yourself. It is a very different approach to childcare. There is a lot more freedom and benefits to this way. It's better for the children, it's better for ourselves, and I just think it's a really wonderful opportunity, and I wish that everybody who is drawn to family daycare can experience the benefits that I have. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.